Today is a very special day for me. On this day, 10 years ago, I met my platonic soulmate, my MOIRAIL. We have been friends ever since, talking and role-playing almost every single day for a decade. And it all started because of two websites, Tumblr and MS Paint RP. This is going to be a long story with a few mini tangents to provide y'all with some context of the world as I knew it back then, so I hope you'll bear with me. Once upon a time, all those years ago, I was running an Ask blog. For those of you who aren't aware what an Ask blog is, 1, Percy and Springtrap was an Ask blog, where the hell have you been? And 2, Ask blogs were accounts people would make on Tumblr where they would play one or more characters. People could send in questions, and the author of the blog would respond in character, usually adding art. They're probably still around in this day and age, but 10 years ago, the amount of Ask blogs that were active on Tumblr was staggering. And, as previously stated, I had my own little piece of the pie. The Ask blog I was running at that time was known as Batter's Baby Boy, and it was based on the game by Mortis Ghost, Off. The blog focused around Hugo, the Batter's son, but would also feature other characters of Off getting into silly and heartfelt shenanigans. Unlike Percy and Springtrap, BBB never really had an overarching story, but it didn't need to. It got a pretty decent amount of followers while it was active, and so, one day, I decided it might be a fun idea to interact more directly with the fans of the blog. So, I decided to make a dedicated room for roleplay on MS Paint RP. MS Paint RP was a website where people could either match up with random people for text-based roleplays based primarily on the characters of Homestuck, or they could make their own rooms that multiple people could join with an invitation. You could also change the settings about which character you were playing at any given point, and although the site was primarily Homestuck focused, you could also make yourself be other characters from other series and franchises. You'd just have to put those settings in yourself, instead of being able to choose the pre-made settings of a Homestuck character. And that's what me and a bunch of others did for what was, back then, the BBB MS Paint RP room. Side note, I was also in another dedicated room for an RP based on the Felt Mob, and I may or may not dedicate a future video to the amount of drama that sprung forth from that room, but for now, just stick a pin in the fact that I was there. It'll come up again later on. Back on track. The BBB RP room was made, and I posted an invite to the room on the Ask blog. Among other people who joined was someone who went by the username Greenblood for Life, and she took the role of the character Dedan, while I, naturally, took the role of Hugo, though I would sometimes also choose to play as other characters. I found that out of everyone who had come to roleplay with me, I liked her the most, so we got to talking more, and boy howdy did we click. We became Tumblr mutuals after that, and I learned her name is Sierra, and we exchanged phone numbers and kept in touch through MS Paint RP, text, and Skype. Now, around this same time, I had someone else in my life who I believed at the time would be my MOIRAIL. Let's call this person Coco. Coco was one of my roleplay partners in the Felt Mob room, and they played the role of a character named Dai. Together, we shipped the characters we played, Dai and my original character, Esme the Phoenix. But their relationship was not a healthy one, and neither was ours. Coco would often portray Dai as an abuser towards Esme, and whenever I tried to voice my discomfort about the in-character abuse, Coco would turn the situation onto me and make the claim that I was trying to force them into playing their character differently, or that I was trying to god-mod them, and they would make me feel bad for being uncomfortable with what they were doing in our roleplays. As you can imagine, over time, this led to the abuse no longer being just an RP thing. Additionally, Coco started ghosting me more and more, and I was so unhealthily attached to them that when I saw them talking to other people and being happier around them than they were around me, their supposed MOIRAIL, I admittedly became jealous and angry. Eventually, it got to the point where Coco blew up at me in the public out-of-character group chat that me and all the other Felt players were in. Whatever issues our friendship was facing privately were aired for all to see, even though it was no one else's business. And they said it was because I was guilt-tripping them and giving them anxiety. And with that final outburst, Coco broke off not only our MOIRAIL, but our friendship as a whole. It took 2 years of looking back on the events, having a lot of time to think of them, but I realized they were U-turning the situation onto me so they could only do my characters, and through a greater extent myself, more harm. Other people's pain gives them pleasure, and I know this for a fact because they later went on to do the exact same thing to someone else in the same felt room. Someone who I actually keep in contact with still to this day. If you're watching this, hi Brand! Anyway, the events of what Coco did, of course, got to me, and I went to Sierra for comfort. When I told her I just lost my MOIRAIL, even though I don't have access to those old chat logs anymore, I distinctly remember that she told me she could be my temporary MOIRAIL for the time being. So much for temporary. It is kind of funny to think about in retrospect how Coco wanted to do one final grand thing to hurt me, and instead it led to one of the best things in my life. I'm sure if they knew how happy I ended up, they'd be so salty about it. Sucks to suck, Coco. The rest from there is basically history. We've met up in real life a few times, and we've messaged each other almost every single day for the past 10 years. We still dream about being able to live together, and we sometimes call each other our platonic wife/husband. We send each other huge packages in the mail for holidays and birthdays, and we still roleplay too. She's even the one who helped me create the storyline of Percy and Springtrap, because that whole series started as an RP between us, and I loved it so much that I turned it into a blog. Her creativity in writing knows no bounds, and I can just never get over how fucking awesome she is. I start happy stimming whenever I think about how much I love her and how lucky I am to have her in my life. So, happy 10 years, MOIRAIL. Here's to another 10 more, or better yet, the rest of our lives. That's all for now, starlings. If you liked this complicated little story, be sure to give a thumbs up and leave a comment showing Sierra some love. It would also mean a lot to me if you would click subscribe and ring the bell. The algorithm has not been too kind to me lately. Anyway, this Starboy's gonna blast off, so until next time, be kind, be creative, and peace out.